Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. A lot of gardening involves editing and changing your garden as it matures and changes. So that is exactly what we are doing today here along the creek bank on the house side. The Limelights, they need their annual pruning, so we're going to do that. I have got 3 Invincibelle Ruby hydrangeas that need to be moved. So we're going to move them. It's actually going to be a better design impact by moving them. And then last but certainly not least, we are going to be adding in a beautiful evergreen tree that is going to give us structure and color year round. And so this is a lot of fun today. But time is of the essence because, of course, it is mid-March in North Carolina, and y'all, spring is springing. We are like record-breaking temperatures this week. Thankfully, it is going to calm down a little bit, but my Limelights, they are already putting out new growth, so I have got to prune them. But before we prune the hydrangeas, we're going to go ahead and move the Invincibelle Ruby hydrangeas. I've got an assistant with me back here, and he's anxious to move on to some other tasks. So what we are going to do is move 3 of the Invincibelle Rubies. Love this hydrangea, because when I designed this bed and put all of these shrubs in, it was a great design. However, some of these shrubs are really happy and they're starting to kind of crowd out the rubies. So I'm going to take these rubies and move them. Let me show you. It'll make more sense when you can see it. To give you a frame of reference where we are, of course, we're at right along the creek bank bed. We're passing through the fence at the privacy berm. Here to my right, I have got 3 popcorn viburnums, and I love them. I adore them. They are amazing. You can tell that they are very, very happy. They are at least, I would say, 8 feet tall and 5 to 6 wide. They are growing together, which is exactly what I want. They are covered in buds, so we're going to have a massive abundance of beautiful white viburnum blooms. So they are doing great. Then you come down and I have got 4 Limelight hydrangeas. They too love this spot, are nice and big. That's why we're going to prune them today. But look, bless their hearts, there are the 3 rubies, which they do fine, but you can see that the viburnum is coming over. It's going to continue to grow. I love it here, so I don't want to mess it up. And then the Limelights, of course, are growing nice and big. So Jackson is going to dig them up for me because we're going to work smarter, not harder. And he's a master at using the excavator, so we're going to take advantage of that. So he is going to pop these Invincibelle Rubies out of the ground, take them out, and then we're going to move them down the bed where I have 3 more rubies. So my idea was, when I planted it and designed it, that I would have 3 rubies on each side. Makes sense, right? Well, these 3 rubies have plenty of room to have some additions. So I've kind of marked off the spots. Before he digs them up, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes. That way he can take them out and then plop them in their new holes. So we're going to have a total of 4 of the Invincibelle Rubies on the back, and then 2 rubies on the front, for a total of 6. So without further ado, because I do not want to aggravate the help, we're going to go ahead and pull back the mulch from these spots, let him drill the hole with the bobcat and the auger. I've got my biotone. I'll throw my biotone in the hole. Of course, we use biotone, great starter fertilizer for strong, healthy roots. And then we'll go ahead and move the rubies. Once we've got everybody moved, I'll come back here. We'll talk about rubies, why I love them so much, and if you need to move your hydrangeas, why time is ticking for you to move them without causing too much stress on you and the plant. So let's move some hydrangeas right quick. Let me catch you up to speed on what we did. So the excavator had no problem just popping out those Invincibelle Rubies, and then having the hole prepared made it so easy just to plop them in. We're gonna take a look at those in just a second. But the Forever Goldy, look at that, already starting to glow. Now Forever Goldy gets its name because it should actually be a very like a bright chartreuse green / yellow. Fantastic, tough plant, y'all. This is going to be a beautiful specimen here. The reason that it is a little bit more green than chartreuse is because this Forever Goldy has been hanging out by the house all winter long, and predominantly 99% of the day it was in the shade. So when you have a shrub or a tree that should be in the full sun and you put it in shadier conditions, then it's going to probably lose some of the color, especially if it's supposed to be a bright chartreuse color. This will golden up quite quickly. But I love this tree. It is very soft. It is a gorgeous specimen tree. Of course, you could do them in mass plantings to give you a privacy screen, but this will give us a pop of that evergreen color and, yes, some privacy, because of course I'm standing in the yard of the house, and then you can clearly see that the nursery is just right there. So that will give a screen of privacy to this area. If you're interested in Forever Goldy, it is a full sun tree that will get to be about 10 to 12 tall by 3 to 3.5 feet wide, which will be perfect because I will get height, but I will not get a ton of width, so it will not interfere with the Limelights and the popcorn viburnum. Forever Goldy is hardy in zones 5A to 8B. I am, of course, an 8A, so this is wonderful for me. I have a Forever Goldy at the chicken coop, and when I say it's been through heck and back, it sure has. Gone through some hurricanes, trees landing on it, and she is still standing strong. So I have no doubt that Forever Goldy here will do great. This is nice, rich soil because it is right along the creek bank, not on irrigation, but I will keep an eye on it this first summer. Once it gets established, I won't have to worry about it at all. And also planting this, we're supposed to get some good rain in the next day, and the soil is already nice and damp. So Forever Goldy is going to be fantastic here. The 3 rubies have been placed in their hole. Sweet Thing is here with me, so he's going to help me make sure that they get in the ground properly. So you can see Jackson was able just to kind of plop them in there for me. So Jerry's just going to kind of do some final zhuzhing, make sure the depth is correct, put the biotone in the hole, and then put the soil back for me. So while he's doing that, let's talk about the Invincibelle Rubies and why an Invincibelle Ruby might be a good hydrangea for you. So the Invincibelle series from Proven Winners, these are smooth hydrangeas, okay? So it's that classic mop head, but these are going to be color specific. And Ruby, as its name suggests, is going to be an absolutely stunning ruby colored hydrangea. Has a little bit of a white flecks in there, and this is going to be 3 to 4 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet wide. So like this one next door is pretty much a mature hydrangea. So that gives you the idea of the size on it. And you can see how many flowers we had on this ruby last year. I love having this mass planting right here because, as you see, our house is there. And when we sit on the porch, when these are in bloom, Oh my, it is a gorgeous, stunning display. So where I only had 3, now I have 6. So the display is going to be even more impactful and even larger. The Invincibelle Rubies are hardy in zones 3 to 8. Now with them being hardy in the zones 3 to 8, they're going to be rated for full sun to part sun. And I like to share my mistakes with you so that way you can learn from me. When I first got my hands on Ruby, I was like hardy in zones 3 to 8. At that time we were still a 7B. And I was like, sure, full sun, that'll be great. And so we planted, I think maybe all of these were up there and we brought them down here. Anyway, I don't remember, but we had rubies up at the house in the, like near the forest pansy bed. Full all day sun. Those poor rubies absolutely melted there. They did not like it whatsoever. So we dug them up. Yeah, this is where these came from, and we put them down here. So along the creek bank, so the sun comes up here and then it sets over here. So it gets that 5 to 6 hours of good morning sun, and then it's in the shade in the afternoon. So if you are a fellow Southerner like I am, I would say zones at 7 and warmer, definitely put them in those shadier areas. This is not on irrigation, however, it is near the creek, and so when it rains, this area does stay a little bit moist longer. If you're in a zones 3, 4, 5, 6, I dare say you could probably put them in all day sun and they would be very, very happy. But Invincibelle Ruby, one of those color specific, so it doesn't matter what your pH level is of your soil, you're going to get gorgeous ruby, red, pink blooms on it. They do bloom on new growth, so that means that he was coming and thieving from me. It does mean that we're going to have to prune them. So we're going to prune these in just a second. So your smooth hydrangeas, your Panicle hydrangeas, those are the 2 hydrangeas that bloom exclusively on new growth. That means you're guaranteed to have flowers every single year, which I love, but that does mean that we need to prune them. So we will be pruning them by probably a third, not quite a half, somewhere between a half and a third, because these are mature size. And so we will be doing the same things to the Limelights here in just a minute. But first, we're gonna make sure that these guys are all taken care of, then we'll move on to something else. Limelight hydrangeas really set the standard for large Panicle hydrangeas. They have been on the market for years and noted, like, rightly so, I will get my words out here in a second, rightly so, they are just amazing hydrangeas. So we have 4 of them here along the creek bank. Obviously it is March and these are not completely fleshed out yet. However, I do have little green leaves popping out. During the summertime, this provides a stunning privacy screen between the house and the garden center. So right now, yes, you can see straight through to the greenhouse. During the summer, no, you don't, because these are filled with foliage and then of course those beautiful flowers. Now, you know that I say there is grace in gardening, right? So Panicle hydrangeas, Limelights, just like my smooth hydrangeas, rubies, they bloom on new growth. As I said before, that means that you need to prune them every late winter going into spring, ideally before the little leaves start to pop out. There's grace in gardening. yeah, these never got pruned last year. Neither did any of the ruby hydrangeas. Did they still bloom? Absolutely. Was it as strong and an abundance of flowers as if I had pruned them? Probably not. I don't even think they got fertilizer last year, y'all. We can't do everything, right? So we do what we can. There's grace in gardening. When the time allows, you come back and you do it. So that's what we're doing today. But of course, Limelights are most known for being so large. This is not even, I'm 5'2", and yeah, they're every bit of 8 feet tall. These are definitely mature size Limelights. So I am going to prune them down, maybe not quite half. So I'm 5 feet. So I'm going to prune them where at the tallest, where they're going to be about my height. So we're going from like 8 feet to about 5 feet. I want them to have the canopy down under. So in some cases, I will come in and limb them up so I can underplant underneath them. I don't want that to happen here, but I will go ahead and prune. Now, I absolutely could take hedge trimmers to this, and maybe towards the end, I will. But there's something very satisfying to me about being able to cut each branch and make it the shape that exactly that you want. So that is what I'm going to do. Wherever I see those 2 little leaves popping out, I'm going to cut, like if this is the stem and these are my leaves, I'm going to cut this stem right above these 2 leaves. Those 2 leaves will then turn into 2 branches, which gives me tons of blooms. So this is going to take me a minute, my friends, but I'm in the shade. It is a stunning day. The birds are singing. It's blue sky. I'm just going to enjoy my time out here pruning these 4 very large, very mature Limelights, and then we're going to fertilize, because food equals flowers, my friends. We got to fertilize these babies. My friends, ta-da, the Limelights have been pruned. I am not gonna lie. Yes, there's grace in gardening and you can skip a year pruning your Limelights, but you're gonna pay for it the next year. Oh my goodness, talk about a bunch of limbs in there, but they look so much better. And I know that it is going to be an absolutely spectacular summer with those Limelights all filled in with beautiful foliage and of course those gigantic, lovely, creamy white flowers. Now, this may not be a term that you're used to associating with gardening, like editing your garden, but I really do like that word, because this was not a garden redesign. An edit, right? When you edit something, you tweak it, you improve it, you make it better. You're making it more clear so it's understandable and those kinds of things, right? So that's what we did. We edited the garden. Something wasn't working quite right, having the rubies down there because they were getting smothered. So we moved it, right? So when you're editing a paper, maybe you take one sentence out from the bottom and you move it to the top. Same thing. We just moved them over and improved that. And then having 6 rubies right here, it is going to make such a statement in kind of like late spring or early summer. Gorgeous, absolutely lovely. So love having these 6 right here. It did start to sprinkle, which is interesting, but I don't know that it was supposed to do that today, but we're supposed to get good rain in the next day or 2. Again, they were well watered as far as the soil, but when you transplant, and especially if you're not on irrigation, that first year, make sure they have plenty of water during the heat of the summer. That's the most critical. So that's what I'm gonna have to keep an eye on. The 3 that have been there, don't need to worry about them at all. They are perfectly fine. So those are all done, and I did get everybody fertilized. Now, I did not fertilize the 3 that I moved. They have biotone. They don't need an additional fertilizer. I can fertilize them in about 6 to 8 weeks after I use that biotone. If I were to use biotone and then rose tone or holly tone with them, too much food, not a good thing. However, the Limelights pruned and heavily fed. hopefully the hydrangea sticks will show up, but you can see like I went in there and I pruned every single limb, and you can see when I'm talking about as far as having the leaves pop out, they are. And so we are moving and grooving right along. Got them cleaned up, thinned out when I needed to, didn't do a ton of like thinning per se. You notice that I left those limbs down there at the bottom because we talked about it. Want to have full coverage on these Limelights, and then came through and just dumped a ton of rose tone on around the drip line of your Limelights. With your hydrangeas, especially your color specific hydrangeas, rose tone is a great thing to use because hydrangeas and roses, they're woody ornamentals and they have the same nutritional requirements. Now, if you want to have blue hydrangeas on those pH dependent ones, then maybe holly tone is a better choice for you because it is more acidic and it will help turn your hydrangeas blue. In these last two hydrangeas, I had honeysuckle. So I had to get the honeysuckle out. And in fact, let's see if I can get the camera in here and see if this will focus on this limb. Can you see that one right there, how gnarly it is? There was a honeysuckle vine that had obviously been there for quite a while and was cutting into / the Limelight was growing around that honeysuckle. Got it all cleaned up. Now, my people who deal with this, my fellow Southerners, do you see the pink flag right there? I wonder if you can identify this vine. This is like a curse word for any gardener here in the South. It is a very pliable vine that is dormant right now, but still very much alive. Oh, and I actually see some green on one. Do you know what that is? Mm-hmm. Yep. Kudzu. So we have like maybe a handful of places on our property that have kudzu. Obviously, we're not planting kudzu, people, right? So this is right, it all happens kind of along the creek bank. So either seeds wash down, birds bring it in, I don't know. But those of you that are blessed not to have kudzu, consider yourself very, very blessed, because kudzu is that gosh awful vine that in the South will literally climb 60, 70 feet into trees, completely take over entire forest. When you're driving down the road and you see these massive trees covered in this big green leafy vine, that is kudzu. It is an absolute nightmare to get rid of. And it is not just, oh, I'll just pull it out and deal with it. No, you noticed that I left all the vines right there. I took my pink flag and I marked it. I did not want to pull any of the kudzu out because the last thing I wanted to do was then add it to my compost at the other end of the property, because guess what? The kudzu is going to root and take over there. So what we have found, the only way to really get rid of kudzu is we're going to leave it. I am going to come back and I'm going to say the R word, and you're going to like clutch your pearls and just gasp. But if you've had kudzu, you know, it's kind of like wisteria. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Roundup, full strength Roundup. I am going to cut that kudzu and I am going to paint, probably just paint because it's not super thick, like wide. Paint that cut with Roundup. I will more than likely have to do this multiple times throughout the growing season to ensure that this kudzu truly is dead. That is why I marked it. I knew that I had kudzu in here because I could see it last year. We're going to pray that nothing else has rooted in front of this Limelight and into where the Forever Goldy is, because that was kind of the general area that it was in. So I will be very vigilant this growing season to make sure that the kudzu can get gone once and for all. But doing little edits in your garden, pruning, moving, transplanting, adding some structure in, fertilizing, all of that sets your garden up for a beautiful, successful growing season. And I am so excited to see just how everything will flourish. When these popcorn viburnums are in bloom, I'm going to bring you down here because Dear heavens to Betsy, they are spectacular. So snowball viburnums, never pruned them, just leave them alone. And then of course they give you also beautiful fall foliage because those green leaves turn nice and burgundy and they hold on to them for a long time. So I love those viburnums. Then you've got Forever Goldy, the Limelights, the Rubies, everything just looking fantastic. All right, my friends. I smell like the tones because I put out some tones today. So it is a shower time for me. Brenna's already been running around in the creek up and down and around, so I guess she's had her bath for the day. So as always, we hope you have found this fun, informative, inspirational. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.